Hello, welcome to another special Astronomers Without Borders presentation. Wherever you are around the world, love to see you. We've got our chat room open, and please leave your comments in the comment section. This is, of course, Global Astronomy Month, the 12th edition for 2021. And guess what? We're already at the final day, April 30th. I can't believe it. It's been a jam-packed month. Lots of amazing events, things that you guys are doing all over the world, things, of course, that we've brought to you to share all the good that astronomy and the night sky has to offer, and all the amazing things, of course, that how we engage with the night sky and astronomy and the universe at large. It's been a fantastic time. I hope you've been able to participate. And remember that even if you've missed any of our events, many of the online events that we have, like these wonderful Facebook Lives, are all archived on our YouTube channel. Astronomers Without Borders YouTube channel has all of these presentations, including the one that we have today. The finale will be all archived, so you can enjoy it at your leisure whenever you like. So here we are, the last day of Global Astronomy Month 2022, and we've got an amazing presentation lined up for you. We're very excited because it sort of also signifies the launch of a beautiful collaboration that we have with the International Astronomical Union, IAU-UNESCO project that involves, of course, astronomical heritage around the world, conserving sites that have astronomical importance. And this is something that we hope that will involve you. Yes, you, wherever you're watching around the world. It's really incredible to think that there are sites that are important. It connects us to the night sky. Could be an ancient site, could be a much more modern site. And there's a lot of really interesting things out there. I mean, I know personally for myself here, being in Montreal, Canada, there are amazing things in terms of locations that are astronomically important sites. And we're so excited to have people area. Now, before I introduce our speaker, let's just turn to the comments here quickly, just to say hi to folks all over. We have Cecilio from Stockton, California. Hello to you. We've got, who else do we have here? We've got Sadia from Victoria, Australia. Jean from Louisiana, United States. Astronorm from the Philippines, our national coordinator there in the Philippines. Hello, Norman. Great for you to join us. Francesca from Italy. And we have Mona from Dallas, Texas. Lena from Germany. Oh my gosh, we've got people from everywhere. We've got Kazuya Ayani, our national coordinator in Japan. So nice of you to be here with us, Kazuya. We've got Voris from Vienna, Austria. And we've got Gavin from New Westminster, British Columbia. And Suna from Turkey. Oh my gosh, we have Joe Stubler, our national coordinator in Austria. Welcome, Joe. So nice of you to join us. We've got also Dario from Portugal, and many, many more of you are tuning in. And of course, if you're watching this archived, so thank you for watching this presentation. So without further ado, really, our talk today is by a very special individual, an eminent archaeoastronomer. And I was excited to hear about this is a fascinating field to learn more about this. And we're so fortunate that Dr. Clive Ruggles is actually the director of the UNESCO IAU Portal to the Heritage of Astronomy project. And this is the project that we're now kind of launching in terms of your awareness and your participation here at Astronomers Without Borders. We've got 12,000 members across the world in over 143 countries, and we want you to participate in this wonderful project. So we're really excited. We're going to have all the information for you, and we have Dr. Clive Ruggles, who is joining us now, who will really be giving us a guide to this wonderful project. Dr. Ruggles, welcome. Oh, let's get your microphone.
Okay.
There we go.
There we
Hello?
go. Thank you again, Andrew. You can all hear me now. And hello, everybody. This is wonderful to be involved in this. And yeah, so what is an archaeoastronomer? The simple answer is a funny mix of an archaeologist and an astronomer, which is what I am. And yeah, I'm privileged to be able to work on understanding ancient cultures around the world and how they related to the skies, how they understood the skies. And we study monuments and things too, and how they align and stuff like that to try and understand about that. So yeah, so how did I get involved in astronomical heritage? And if we go on to the
Yes.
presentation, then I'll explain that. So hopefully you're now seeing. It's actually a picture of Midori Observatory in France. I'll come back to the significance of that. It all started in Venice back in 2004. I had no involvement whatsoever from UNESCO, and suddenly I had an invitation from UNESCO to go to a meeting in Venice, and where they have an office, and it was where they were trying to set up an initiative about astronomical heritage. So now the thing about UNESCO is that they maintain the World Heritage List. We're all familiar with World Heritage sites. They can be natural ones, they can be cultural ones around the world. There's about 1,200 of them, famous places that are of significance to the whole of humankind. But every now and again, they think about what areas that the World Heritage List isn't covering properly. And at that time, they were starting to realize, the cynics amongst us would say, that there's an S in UNESCO and that the S stands for science, and that science was rather underrepresented on the World Heritage List. And they decided they'd start with astronomy because, well, for one reason, everyone's got a sky. So every human culture, past and present, has had a sky and is related to it and has astronomies of their own. So they set up the Astronomy World Heritage Initiative back then to try to eventually bring about more astronomical heritage sites on the World Heritage List. And that chunted along for 2 or 3 years, and they thought about the issues. But the real breakthrough, next please, came along in 2008 when they joined up with the IAU, the International Astronomical Union. And this was all in the context of 2009, which many of you will remember was the International Year of Astronomy. And there were lots of astronomical things going on, coordinated by UNESCO and the IAU working together. And they decided that heritage would be one of the strands of the meeting, of the year. And so the IAU became involved in advancing this initiative. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time and ended up being the IAU person working with Anna Sidorenko, whose name you see there, from UNESCO. And we ran the initiative from the two sides over the next 10 years. Now, one of the first things, yeah, hold it there, thank you. One of the first things that we discovered was that the IAU couldn't come along, we the astronomers, and say to UNESCO, this is what we think is important these are the important astronomical heritage sites around the world. In fact, could you go back again, please, Andrew? Lovely. But because the only people that can put forward sites for World Heritage are national governments, and they're allowed to put forward one property every year to be considered, and then it goes through a long process through UNESCO's advisory bodies before it can be declared a World Heritage, which is usually a couple of years down the line. So what we could do was work with UNESCO to try and understand astronomical heritage better. And we did that. And we worked with them for many years. And of course, it's very broad. It's going back to the prehistoric sites with astronomical connections, right through to modern observatories and even space heritage. We considered the lot. And of course, it takes a long time before that feeds through and governments feel that empowered to put forward potential astronomical heritage, world heritage sites. But it started to happen. Next, please. Now, one of the things we did along the way was to set up the portal that we've already mentioned to you. And the idea of the portal is that it's somewhere where different people, whether they're setting up nominations for governments or the government officials or anyone else who's interested, can look at case studies about astronomical heritage sites around the world. And so the site contains a whole load of these. Some of them are already World Heritage sites, many of them aren't, but it means that people can look at what's out there and understand more about the heritage. So that's the portal is there. And of course, anyone can look at this and you can find out about many different astronomical sites around the world on there. Next, please. So one of the first tangible things that happened back in 2010, a few years in, was that we had two new, really the first properly astronomical heritage sites on the list. Of course, there'd been some sites, ancient sites in Ireland, in Egypt, and in Mexico, and so on, that had astronomical connections, but they weren't listed because of those astronomical connections. It's because they were great archaeological sites or whatever. And these were the first two sites that were actually listed because of their astronomical heritage. One of the Jantar observatories in India, one of the great last fixed observatories in the great Islamic traditions that was built in India in the 18th century, and Dongfeng in China, which is a gnomon, huge horizontal gnomon for measuring the shadow length of the sun at midday throughout the year. Built in the 14th century, again, an extraordinary monument. They were brought in 2010. Next, please. In 2011, well, it's Stonehenge. I had to mention Stonehenge somewhere, didn't I? Well, Stonehenge had been on the World Heritage List for 25 years, but there wasn't any mention of its astronomical significance. And that was put right in 2011. Everyone knows about the solstitial alignment at Stonehenge, midsummer sunrise, there it is in the picture. And that was recognised in 2011. But then just in the last few years, we've got a string of new nominations coming along. Next. So in 2019, we had our first modern observatory inscribed on the World Heritage List, which was Jodrell Bank in the UK. And also next, we had a site from Spain, and this is what UNESCO call a cultural landscape. So it's a place where the significance is in lots of cultural stuff, archaeological sites from different periods, feeding through into present day practices that are traditional practices that are significant. So it's in a large area of the island of Gran Canaria in the Canaries. And part of that is that the practices in these sites relate to the landscape and to the sky. And there are two very significant archaeo-astronomical sites as part of that World Heritage Site now. A cave, Risco Caído, which was built specially to have it has a light funnel that goes into the cave, and where it's shining on the walls tells you the time of year. It's a calendrical thing. And also on the right there, you see a sanctuary, which is aligned so that the light from the sun, just as it rises on the equinoxes, lights up an altar in the middle. So it's a sacred site, but it's related very strongly to the equinoxes. So we're seeing for the first time archaeo-astronomical sites, ancient astronomical sites, appearing on the World Heritage List. Next, please. And one that we hope will be inscribed this year, it's in process, is one that I've been lucky enough to be involved in from the start, a place called Chanquillo in Peru, 2,000-year-old. It's a monumental site, but it has this extraordinary line of 13 towers, enormous things. They're each 5-6 meters tall, in a string on a hill, north-south line, set up so that when they were viewed from an observing point that we know to be sacred, we have all the archaeological evidence that shows that, and it basically functioned as a huge indicator of the day of the year, amongst other things. So you could tell exactly where you were in the year by looking at the position of the sunrise. It's quite unique in the world. We hoped it was going to get nominated last year, to inscribe last year, but of course the World Heritage Committee's meeting got cancelled because of COVID. We're hoping it's going to go ahead this year in one means or another, and we all hope that Chanquillo will go on this year. So there's another ancient site. And then next, one that I hope that we'll be seeing in the future, that's been put forward by the Netherlands, a beautiful planetarium, it's called. It's an orrery. So it's a beautiful example of an early moving solar system model on the ceiling of this building in the Netherlands. it is absolutely beautiful. This is an exquisite work of art as well as a wonderful work of astronomy. So you're already beginning to see these different connections. Next, please. And they don't have to be just fixed stuff. If you think of World Heritage, you think of places that have these connections, in observatories like this one in South Africa. That's fine. But of course, there are other forms of heritage. There's heritage that moves. Next, please. Like artifacts. And here's a very famous one, the Nebra disc from Germany, thought to be Bronze Age, now thought more probably to be Iron Age, but it's a huge thing, dinner plate sized, probably some sort of shield that a warrior wore. I don't believe any of the stuff out there that this was some sort of star map, but it's clearly symbols of the sun and the moon, dots representing stars scattered about. Maybe the cluster is the Pleiades. It's a beautiful object. It's very significant. But that is movable heritage. And UNESCO also has the means to consider that. And this is completely, by the way, it has nothing to do with the talk, but I just couldn't resist. Next, please, putting it in. But I just love that. I'm sorry, it's off the. If you wondered what archaeoastronomy is, there's archaeogastronomy for you. Next, please. And of course, the other form of heritage is intangible heritage. So this is a sort of heritage in the form of cultural practices or beliefs. There's no stuff there, but it's in the people and what's in people's minds. And there's a lovely example of that from Hungary. It's actually a World Heritage Site, another one of these cultural landscapes. Lowland area, quite unique lowland area in that part of Europe. And that's brought about its own shepherding and herding practices that related to the stars. And in fact, the site is a World Heritage Site because of the cultural practices, but it's also a dark sky park recognized by the International Dark Sky Association. And that, because the shepherding practices were very much related to the stars, and that is still continuing to some extent today. So that's the sort of stuff that we're dealing with in the astronomical, the heritage and the Astronomy and World Heritage Initiative. Next, please. But then 2 years ago, it was the IAU's centennial, their 100 years, and they had some special things going on, and a number of special things, as many of you know, during the year. And in relation to that, we thought in relation to the portal, we would love to get public involved in the portal. So we kicked off our Places Connected to the Sky project, which, being astronomers, we call PC2S, but Places Connected to the Sky, where we wanted the public and people at large to think about their heritage related to the sky. Next, please. And of course, there is very much a personal element to heritage. And so I show you this because this is something that has a personal impact for me. It's actually an Aboriginal drawing of an emu, a rock art drawing. It's on a rock art platform just north of Sydney, Australia. But what it conjures up to me is an episode, what must be 10 years ago now. I was actually in Victoria, Australia, and hello to the person from Victoria in the audience. Well inland. And I was there with this guy who's really showing me many different Aboriginal sites. But we're camping. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's this flapping on my tent. Clive, come and look at the emu. John, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to get up and look at an emu, but he insisted. So I got up. And what he meant was the emu in the sky. Oh, the picture's gone. What I got up and saw was the darkest night sky I think I've ever seen in my life, and still to this day, the so dark that the sky was just a mass of points of light. You really don't see our constellations anymore. The Milky Way was running right over the top, and the dark clouds that you see in the Milky Way were prominent, and particularly prominent was a collection of dark clouds that they call the emu. And if you can bring the next slide back on now, please, Andrew. Then on the left there, that's as good a representation. I mean, you have to be there, but it's as good a representation as I've ever seen in a photograph. And the thing is that when you look at that photograph was taken, the guy who took it, Barnaby Norris, managed to take a photo of the celestial emu above that rock art figure that I saw before. And what he and his father Ray have argued very convincingly is that rock art emu was a representation of the emu in the sky, which is well known to many Aboriginal groups. Next, please. So we got various places connected to the sky that we put on the portal, and they've suggested to us. Some are, of course, observatories and people's favourite observatories. So here's one from Vienna. Hello to the people from Vienna. And the Kufner's a lovely observatory. I can't talk about it, but it's a delight to have it on our list. But of course, there's many other ways in which places can be connected to the sky. Next, please. One of them is that significant things happen there. So here's another one, Point Venus. It's the most northerly tip of the island Tahiti in French Polynesia. And it's famous, and its astronomical significance is because that's where Captain James Cook went in 1769, way before we'd started to come into the Polynesian islands and invade them with the European culture, and where he managed to watch the transit of Venus from the other side of the world in 1769. So, and set up his own observing point there. So that is famous because of something that happened there astronomically. Next, please. But you know, one of my absolute favorites, and to show you a different way in which places can connect to the sky, is this village in northern Italy, Aiello. It basically, a few years ago, a couple of people in the village built beautiful sundials, and then a few other people copied them and built their own beautiful sundials, functioning slightly differently with different artistic merits. Wind forward the clock, and the village now has a competition every year where people compete to build the nicest sundial, and there are over 100 of these beautiful sundials, all different forms and stuff around the village. It's somewhere I would love to go. But at least in this day and age of lockdowns and everything, there's lots to be seen on the internet about this, and we have it as one of our case studies. Now that is a different way in which a place connects to the sky, and it's a beautiful one. Next, please. And here, here is my, oh no, this is not my absolute favourite, one to go, but here's another way. So this is Stonehenge. This is what you saw in the picture, in the flyer. So this is Stonehenge Aotearoa. Stonehenge in New Zealand. Now, it's not pretending to be anything like the real Stonehenge, except in its sort of broad form. For one thing, it has 6 heel stones, the stones out the side, rather than 1 as at Stonehenge. But the point is, it was built in the sort of general form of Stonehenge as a sort of astronomical teaching tool. And so the people who run it have tourists and school children come there, and things line up, and they learn about where the sun and the moon rise on the horizon. There's someone trying to explain the analemma, for those of you who know about the analemma, trying to explain it to a bunch of tourists there. But so it's like an astronomical teaching tool in a way, in the form of Stonehenge. And that's a lovely different way in which, again, somewhere is connecting to the sky. Right, next, please. Now, here is my absolute favourite. Now, Otford, this is in the UK, is a lovely little pretty village. It's, as I was once told by a French colleague, every Frenchman's conception of an English village, as it should be. So that's what it looks like when you get off this 3/4 of an hour train ride from London. You come on this little commuter train, you find yourself out in the Kent countryside in the southeast of England, and you're in this beautiful village. I've just noticed it even has a red phone box. I've never noticed that in the picture before. Okay, so you get out the train. It's this quiet village, and you think, so what? You walk about a mile, a kilometre or so down the village. Next, please. And then you come to the recreation field. And at the back of the recreation field, you'll see these few concrete pillars. And this is a model solar system. Now there are model solar systems of various forms around the world, but this one appeals to me. Well, I'll tell you why it does. Next, please. So here on its pillar, top left, is the sun, and you see the close up, and basically the sun is this football-sized sphere. They actually only show you half of it, so that's the size of the sun. And then they have constructed the whole solar system to scale. So the Earth, the bottom left picture with the pillars in the distance. So the right hand one of those is the Earth, and you can't really see it very well, but in the bottom left is the top of the pillar. What they've done is that each pillar contains a plate which is the same diameter as the sun, and then scratched on that plate is the planet. So again, you can't really see it, but for 2 millimeter wide scratch little circle in the middle is the Earth, and in fact the moon is on there as well because it fits within the circle, and that's one of the pillars. Next, please. And here's the entire solar system. And so you can see that the middle top is the inner planets, and in the foreground is Mars. Mars ended up in the middle of a football field, so they couldn't put it on a pedestal, otherwise it would have done nasty things to all the people playing football. So they put that flat on the ground. But everything else is on a pillar. So top right is Jupiter in the side of the field, about 100 meters behind us. And then Saturn, bottom left, is in an adjacent street. Uranus is by a bus stop towards the edge of the village. Neptune down there is in the next village by some houses. And then Pluto, they included Pluto because this was done in 2000 as a Millennium Project. And Pluto is out in the fields a couple of kilometers, a mile and a half outside the village. So there's the system. So this is great. But there's even more to the Oxford solar system, which is why I like it so much. You'll see I've put UK and then 3 dots. Next, please. And the 3 dots are actually other English-speaking countries around the world, because a part of the project you will now find, if you look the top left, very, very close, you may not be able to see it, on top of the pillar, you'll see the yellow sun on the side, but on top is a little tiny ball. That's Proxima Centauri, and it's in Los Angeles in the Griffith Observatory. And when you work out the distance around the Great Circle on the Earth to within 5%, it's actually the right distance from our sun, and there's the nearest star to scale, which is a great way of telling people just how empty the universe is. There's Sirius in Sydney, again to scale, and that's in Sydney, Australia. Bottom left, the Barnard star was last heard of in the Falklands Museum. We think they actually lost that sometime in the last 20 years, and we've sent them another one. And then Ross 154, one of the more obscure nearer stars, red dwarf, and that's hanging up in the museum in Christchurch in New Zealand. So that's lovely that the Oxford people have got their solar system to scale all around the world. I love it. Next, please. So here's how we have connected. We've connected up with Astronomy Without Borders because we'd love to actually expand this and have a lot more places connected to the sky. And this is where you come in, as Andrew has said. On the AWB website is this page, which will tell you more. You'll find a page on our portal as well. Do have a think about this, because there's so many different ways in which places can be connected to the sky, and we'd love to get some different ones, ideas that I've not heard of or thought of on there as well. Next, please. So to finish off, heritage is lots of different things to lots of different people, and just a couple of thoughts to finish with here. This is Peak Media that I showed a picture of at the beginning. For a lot of modern observatory directors, of course, heritage is complete anathema, because the idea that their observatory might be considered a heritage site, well, for goodness sake, that might get in the way of the science. And obviously, any observatory director wants to be able to advance the astronomy, and that means building new telescopes and changing things absolutely. Peak Media is a bit different, because what they discovered is the heritage of the place encourage could be a big encouragement for astrotourism. And in fact, astrotourism saved the science at Pic Midi, because the Pic Midi was on the verge of, well, it lost all its funding, was going to be closed off, 10, 15 years ago it must have been now. And by opening up the tourist facilities, then they have managed to not only mean that loads of people can come up there and enjoy the place and understand more about the heritage of the place, but it also lets the science continue, which it's doing because of the money that's coming in from the tourism. So heritage is actually helping the science there. Next, please. But there's also this personal aspect to heritage, and great or small. And this is another one of my favorite places. And so just, again, my personal aspect to it. What you're seeing, the wall in this photograph, you have to imagine it, where it is, because I didn't put those photos in. It's actually on the island of Maui in the Hawaiian Islands. It's somewhere I've been privileged enough to be working for many years on temple sites and their astronomical connotations. And this is on the most southerly tip of the island of Maui. Now, that part of Maui is thankfully completely free of tourism, of resorts, of golf courses, and all the rest of it. It's basically been left as it was because it's a backlands area ever since the Europeans arrived. And there's loads of remains of house sites, wine sites, and temple sites there. And right at the bottom of it, this is really remote location, is this wall, except it's just an isolated stretch, 20 meters, 20 yards of wall with a huge great notch in the middle. Never connected to anything, built in about the 13th or 14th century, as far as we know archaeologically. And it's when you look through that notch out to the south, out to sea, it's not quite pointing southwards, it's a little bit off. And we worked out that it was pointing just where the kite shape of the Southern Cross would be at its most upright. And what we believe, what we've argued, and I think it's now accepted by people, is it's not some sort of observatory where people were observing. It's a monument. It was actually built as a monument. And we think it was built as a monument to navigation. It was built people had arrived from Tahiti and the islands in the south about 1000 AD. By about 1300, 1400, the long distance Pacific voyaging was beginning to cease. But the Southern Cross and the pointers remained a symbol of the navigation southwards. And this was the point at which navigators would have set off because of the currents. And so we believe that wall was set there as a memorial. And having been there and worked on that and helped in part of that, that's a very personal place to me, and I think it's a lovely connection to the sky. That picture, we done all this with using stellarium to work out the astronomy, but one of the modern Pacific navigators, a guy called Kalepa Baybayan, he actually, and I'm sorry to the Philippine if a person here if I got the pronunciation of his name wrong. But he set this. He took this beautiful photograph with the Southern Cross exactly in the configuration that it could have been seen. So heritage is what you make of it, and particularly next. Oh, the last one, please, Andrew. So heritage is what you make it, and any place, whether grand or small. And I finish with this because I just love this. This is one of the planets from the Oxford solar system. It's Uranus, sitting here by the bus stop. That poor guy was so self-conscious when I was taking a photo of him, but he was happy with it. And there's Uranus just sitting in its place by the side of a main road where the buses stop. But it's a lovely little connection to the sky. We have small connections, big connections around the place. We'd love to have your input with more of them on our portals. So please get in touch. On the chat, I think Doris, who's one of our portal team, I think she's on the chat, and we'll follow this up with you. And please get in touch with us. And we're looking forward to how this pans out. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's wonderful, Clive. Thank you so much for that. This is, I mean, what stuns me is the variety of sites. When you mention, heritage sites, I'm always thinking, ancient, really like that. really ancient sites, but it's not. There's modern sites out there that need to be recognized and protected. This is what's so interesting. And I mean, how? I mean, we're asking people to participate, right? I mean, how many places do you think are out there that are waiting for protection? You think, or to be recognized? What do you
Well, to
think?
be recognized. Yeah, I mean, there could be hundreds, there could be thousands. I think many of them will, of course, many of them will be of a similar variety. So many people will think, oh, but actually we've got our little observatory somewhere. That's a significant place to us. Well, that's good. And of course, I think dark sky places are really important here, and many people will have their favorite relatively dark sky places. It's great to have those involved as well. But you know what I think, and so I think we could have many of those, and great. But what excites me most is just discovering some of the different ways in which places can connect to the sky. And I think a lot of those I and others haven't thought of yet until they come and hit us in the face. So come on, guys, and hit us in the face with them. We'd love to know more.
Right. I mean, one of our
Mm,
comments that someone says that how important it
mm,
is to preserve uh, the night sky today. I mean, we have,
mm,
at Astronomers Without Borders, we work with International Dark Sky Association too. We partner with
yeah.
them, and they're
Mm,
one of the major advocates of dark skies, creating dark sky parks and preserves.
mm,
Really recognizing that the night sky is our common heritage of humanity, isn't it? Um,
exactly.
but there are, that's
Mm,
preserving the sky, but it's not exclusive. It's not, yes, we have to preserve the night sky, but there are places on Earth, terrestrial locations as
mm,
well, that have that connection with the sky. I guess we need that, right? That recognition. Are we, Dr. Ruggles, are
mm,
we in danger of losing that connection, our ancient connection? That you showed me those petroglyphs in
mm,
Australia too. With the emu. I
mm.
mean, these date back thousands of years. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, are we in danger of losing these sites?
Well, first of all, we're in danger of losing the connection, of course, because the huge percentage of people who live on the Earth who never see the dark sky, really dark sky, and never appreciate how important that was to everyone in the ancient past. I mean, many of these sites are in danger because people don't even realise those connections are there and don't spot them. I mean, one of the big things we've been doing in our initiative is trying to convince UNESCO and find ways with UNESCO to help with this preservation. The problem for World Heritage is that, as UNESCO will view it, it's the having a dark sky is not seen as a plus. It's seen as a sort of absence of light pollution. And so the way we have to sell it to UNESCO is to say, well, look, the dark sky is an absolute essential to this cultural place or to this natural place. So if you have a cultural practice that is related to the dark skies because people needed to come to that monument to keep looking at the stars from it, or had practices like the shepherding or many others I could talk about that related to the sky, the dark skies, they need the skies to be dark. We can argue that as part of the cultural significance of that place, like the site in Hungary, you want to keep the skies dark. But also, we can argue that the dark sky is a very important attribute of a culture, of a natural place. So, for example, in southwest New Zealand is one of the biggest natural World Heritage sites. And adjacent to that, partly overlapping, is an area called Tekapo, which is one of the darkest places in the world, one of the most best dark night skies, and that's an international dark sky reserve. And what we're hoping will eventually happen is that will be incorporated as part of the World Heritage Site, because the dark skies are part of the attribute, the natural attributes, the natural value of that place. and then part of the UNESCO package is needing to preserve those as part of the value of the site. So there are ways, but UNESCO recognition itself doesn't guarantee protection. It's almost but it does help you through whatever legal processes are going on in the country to try and guarantee and preserve those skies as best you can.
Now we've got a question here from Diego, and you'll have to excuse my if I don't pronounce it well, but it's his question is: Good afternoon. I'd like to know what Dr. Ruggles thinks of the Italian Etruscan astronomical sites. Etruscan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Etruscan. Yeah. No, this is. I mean, there's been a lot of work done on these by Giulio Magli and some interesting alignments and so on that have been discovered there. So. I mean, he's the person to ask on that, but I think there is some fascinating stuff there that well, I mean, I'm in danger there of going off on a long tangent, but Giulio Magli is the person to talk to about that, about Etruscan stuff, because there's a lot of interesting things there.
Yeah, you're definitely people are talking about different sites in the chat already.
Yeah.
You know, which
this
is
turn into yes.
They're thinking. You've got their wheels turning. We have our we have another of our national coordinators, Raoul Lanoy, who's saying Saint Véran in France is a great place high in the Alps as well. So they're thinking about locations, obviously connected with astronomy. And I think what's very interesting, Dr. Ruggles, is that this is something that people, I think we need to think locally to each individual. Yeah. What is in your location, right? I mean, we're not talking about, something that they may be familiar with, something that maybe they grew up with, something that maybe they've heard of in their own location and geographical region that they are familiar with. There may be a site that could be, put forth as for consideration, right? So Dr. Ruggles, what is the process that's also being asked here in one of our comments is what is the process that how the public could nominate a site?
Well, basically, it's sort of two-step process. So you go through now you've got the links on the Astronomy Without Borders, Astronomy Without Borders website. We've got it on our portal as well. So you go into that and basically give us the broad details of what you have in mind. And then you'll get some feedback from Doris or one of the other people in the portal team. And then if we want you to elaborate on, if there's some reason why it doesn't work, we'll tell you. But otherwise, we'll say, okay, please elaborate on this and this and this, and we'll work with you to get that in a form that we can put on the portal.
This is the page that we have at Astronomers Without Borders that we put up with some basic information about the sites. And here, there's a wonderful global map that your team has provided us that people can actually go in and look through and see all the different sites that are already listed there, so they can get an idea of what's going on. And also, we have, if you want some inspiration or you have some questions, so if you have any questions at all, this is the place that you can go and start chatting about this. And we have one of your team members who will be in here being able to answer some questions, which is really good. So, we have 12,000 members, Dr. Ruggles. I'm hoping that they put their thinking caps on and start thinking about what the potential sites there are that could be nominated. I think it would be really cool to get our members involved in this all around the world. It's fantastic stuff, and it doesn't seem too difficult either. It's something that's not a difficult process, and it's something that's quite meaningful, I think, in terms of the World Heritage. This is this is something that we can all participate in. It's a great project. And how long is this project going on for? What are you foreseeing?
Well, I don't see a closing date to it. So let's, as long as things are coming in and there's work to be done, let's keep expanding it. I mean, the portal is going to be there, and that's going to be there with case studies for UNESCO. So let's keep this stuff coming in. So no, we're not planning an endpoint just yet. I can tell you that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So. AWB community, you've got your call to action. We'd love to hear what your nominated sites are, what you would like to consider. And of course, the discussion thread is open on our site. Become a member if you're watching this and you're not a member of Astronomers Without Borders. This is another great project that is open to our membership. And you can get in there, talk directly with the IAU team that's organizing this and coordinating it. And let's see what kind of sites around the world we can protect. Dr. Ruggles, thank you so much for joining us today.
A pleasure and a privilege. That's great. Great meeting you all.
It's been fantastic, and I hope you can join us again in the future. We'd love to get some updates. I'm excited to see what the future holds for this wonderful project of protecting astronomical heritage and the help that folks like you watching out there can participate in this. So thank you, Dr. Ruggles, and of course, I wish you all the best. Thank you. Well, folks, that's it. I guess that's an end of another edition of Global Astronomy Month, GAM 2021, the 12th edition. Can't believe it's already a whole month. It was jam-packed with lots of stuff. We're hoping next year we'll get back to some normalcy around the world, have some star parties, and in-person, of course, hosting events is something that all of us who do astronomy and outreach in astronomy are really missing. We all wish all of you health and safety wherever you're watching. And of course, I wish all of you, I'm Andrew Fizakis, the Night Sky Guy here on behalf of Astronomers Without Borders. I wish all of you clear skies. Bye-bye.
From the pale blue dot to the distant stars, we are one. One people, one sky.